Hey there, and welcome to a deep dive made just for you. So today we're diving into something I know you're curious about, scaling up a business. We're going deep with, Verne Harnish's scaling up methodology, using like the stack of articles and research you shared. Think of this as your kind of shortcut to scaling up wisdom with hopefully some aha moments along the way.
It's funny when you think about scaling up, it's not just for those Silicon Valley startups.
Right.
Like whether you're a small business owner or just like interested in business growth in general, these principles they're surprisingly universal.
Yeah. And
Uh,
speaking of Universal Harnish's 4D framework, people, strategy, execution, and cash, that provides a pretty solid blueprint.
Yeah.
But I think what really struck me going through these materials is just how much emphasis is placed on people.
Yeah, it makes sense, right? Like you could have the most, I don't know, revolutionary product, but like without a team that's, passionate, dedicated, it's going nowhere.
Totally.
Yeah.
And Harnish takes it a step further, right?
hmm
He's talking about building a company culture that not only attracts the best talent,
hmm
but also keeps them engaged for the long run.
Totally. And that really resonated with me too. It's not just about, perks and ping pong tables.
Right.
It's about like defining your core values, right? He gave this like great example, right? Imagine you're interviewing someone. Instead of just like checking if they have the right experience on their resume, you dig deeper. You ask yourself, do their values actually align with the company's values? Do they show, potential, a willingness to learn and grow with the business? I thought that was interesting.
It's almost like you're prioritizing cultural fit and potential over just ticking off boxes on a resume.
Exactly. It's about finding people who not only have the skills to kind of, tackle today's challenges, but
Right.
like the adaptability and shared vision to really tackle, whatever comes next.
This actually reminds me of something, we were discussing earlier about, building our deep dive team.
Yeah,
Of course, we'd want someone with audio editing experience, right?
of course.
But wouldn't it be amazing to find someone who was as passionate as we are about uncovering these golden nuggets of knowledge?
Absolutely. That shared passion, I think, it becomes the engine that drives the whole team forward,
Yeah.
especially, when you're navigating the oftentimes turbulent,
Oh, yeah.
waters of scaling a business.
Definitely. Yeah. So we've laid the groundwork with people,
Yeah.
but a strong team, they need direction, right?
They need something to, yeah.
A goal.
Yeah.
And that's where Harnish's strategy, the second D comes in. And I particularly loved his concept of the 10X vision.
Ah, yes. 10X vision. It's not for the faint of heart.
No.
Essentially, he challenges you to envision your business, right?
Yeah.
10 years down the line.
Right.
Like assuming, everything goes, amazingly brilliantly.
Right.
What would that even look like?
It's about thinking big, bold, and maybe even a little scary. Right?
Yeah, for sure.
But this is where the rubber meets the road, because the materials really emphasize that a 10X vision isn't just some pie-in-the-sky dream, right? It has to be translated into a concrete, actionable, one-year plan.
Precisely. And he actually suggests, Harness suggests breaking that ambitious 10-year goal into smaller, more manageable milestones. This way, you're not just dreaming about the summit, you're mapping out each base camp along the way.
Yeah, and having those clear milestones can be incredibly motivating,
Absolutely.
right? Because it transforms this seemingly impossible challenge into a series of achievable goals.
For sure.
I think we can all relate to that, even outside of the business world.
Absolutely. Think about your own aspirations, right? Let's say you want to write a novel,
Okay.
right? That's your 10X vision. But breaking it down into smaller goals, maybe writing a chapter a month or I don't know, attending a writer's workshop, it makes the journey less daunting
Right.
and maybe even more achievable.
Yes. It's about building momentum and celebrating those smaller victories along the way, which ultimately propels you towards that larger vision.
It makes you wonder, how do you actually maintain that momentum, that drive to hit those milestones? That's where I think execution, the third D, really comes into play.
Yeah, because it's one thing to have the vision board and the one-year plan,
Right.
but actually consistently putting in the work, that's where the magic happens.
It's easy to, make a plan,
Exactly.
but, sticking to it, that's the hard part.
For sure.
And Harnish, he's not just talking about, haphazardly checking things off a to-do list, right?
Right.
He, introduces this concept of a weekly rhythm, like a structured approach to keep your team, aligned and focused, moving in the right direction.
So it's not just about having like weekly meetings just to have them. It's about making them like really intentional, impactful.
Exactly. So from what I got from, the material, the weekly rhythm is all about creating this space, right? For the
Mm.
team to like come together, review their progress, identify any roadblocks, and like really make these important decisions together. It's like a weekly pulse check, right?
Yeah.
Just to make sure everyone's on the same page and that like, any challenges are like addressed proactively.
That makes a lot of sense. One source I read really emphasized how important it is to have like a clear agenda going into these meetings,
Yeah,
like
absolutely.
focusing on the outcomes, not just ticking off boxes.
For sure. And even within that agenda, right?
Yeah.
Harnish like highlights how important it is to like really prioritize those tasks, right?
Yeah.
Figuring out what's a must do versus like what's just a nice to have.
Oh my gosh.
Which
Yeah.
this really resonated with me because I don't know about you, but that's something I struggle with, like personally.
Me too.
Yeah.
It's so easy to get caught up in just the day-to-day and lose sight of like what actually moves the needle forward.
Totally.
And this is where he kind of introduces this like culture of accountability, which,
Yeah.
it sounds a little intimidating at first.
I can see why, but I don't think he means it in like a micromanaging blame game kind of way.
Okay.
It's more about fostering like a sense of ownership
Right.
within the team
Right.
where everyone kind of understands their role, how it contributes to like the bigger picture, and they feel comfortable, flagging challenges without the fear of like being, penalized for it.
Yeah, that psychological safety is so key.
Oh, it's huge.
Right. It allows for like such open communication and like creative problem solving and ultimately just a more like engaged and productive team.
Exactly. It's about shifting, right,
Yeah.
from this like blame and shame culture to one that really prioritizes learning, growth, and like, collective responsibility.
This has been like so insightful.
It's fascinating stuff for sure.
So we talked about like building a strong team, setting that bold vision, and creating systems for like effective execution.
Right.
But there's one crucial element we haven't touched on yet.
And it's a big one.
Cash.
The lifeblood of any business.
Yes.
And that's where the fourth B comes into play. But, it's not just about like generating revenue. It's about like really managing it wisely to actually fuel sustainable growth.
One concept that like stood out to me, I'm curious to know if you like resonated with this, was the cash conversion cycle.
Yeah.
And I'll be honest, I like hadn't given this much thought before, but now I'm like, oh, wow, this is actually really crucial.
It's one of those things that once you see it,
Yeah.
you can't unsee it.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So for those who maybe haven't encountered that term before, can you like break that down a little bit?
Yeah, so essentially it's understanding like the amount of time, right?
Yeah.
That it takes for the money you invest in your business, like in inventory, for example, to actually return to you as cash.
Okay.
Right.
Yeah.
The faster that cycle, the more like liquid your business is.
Right.
And that's what allows you to like scale effectively.
So it's not just about making those sales. It's about getting paid for those sales as quickly as possible.
Exactly. And that's where seemingly like small things can make a huge difference, right?
Yeah.
Like managing your accounts receivable diligently, making sure those invoices are paid on time, and then also like really having a good grasp on your expenses.
This is actually making me think about like this funny anecdote. A while back, I was like, you know what? I'm going to scale up my baking hobby.
Okay. Yeah.
Cookies for everyone.
Nice.
But I like ended up with like hundreds of cookies and barely any profit. Looking back, I think I really neglected my cash conversion cycle.
Well, hey, you live and you learn, right? And
Yeah.
that's what's so great about like exploring this whole scaling up thing. It's really about understanding these key principles and then finding ways to like apply them to your like unique situation. But it doesn't end with just the 4Ds. There's like another layer he introduces, which are the 4 foundations.
Four foundations.
Yeah.
So it's like we're like, constructing this solid building brick by brick.
That's a great analogy.
Yep.
You wouldn't build a skyscraper on, shaky ground, would you?
Right.
No. And so Harnish is arguing that these 4 foundations are just absolutely essential for, the long-term success of any like business that's scaling.
Okay, I'm ready. What are these four foundations? Like, what are we building on?
So first up, you have ideas.
Okay.
And, it's not just about that, like, initial spark of genius, that
Yeah.
initial product or service.
Yeah.
It's about actually cultivating this culture of, like, continuous innovation within the company.
Yeah, that makes sense because the business world is constantly changing.
Right.
So if you just rest on what you've done, you're going to get left behind.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah. You're going to be like a dinosaur. And actually, one of the articles you shared, it highlighted the importance of like creating systems for your company
Okay.
to actually capture those ideas, right?
Yes.
Big or small,
Yeah.
from everyone.
Well,
Because you never know like where that next like, game-changing idea is going to come from.
That's a great point. It's about like empowering everyone to be an innovator,
Exactly.
not just the people who, are
Well,
like the designated creatives.
yes, it's like everyone has that capacity.
Exactly. Yeah.
And so the next foundation, this might like sound familiar, but it's people.
Okay.
And, we've already touched upon how important it is in terms of team building, culture.
Yeah.
But this goes even deeper, right?
Yes. Even deeper on the people. I'm intrigued.
Yeah. So think about it this way. Investing in your team's growth, right? Whether it's through training programs, mentorship opportunities, just creating like a supportive and stimulating work environment. That's not just good for morale, it's essential for, sustainable growth.
So it's about recognizing that your team is like your most valuable asset,
100%. Yeah.
and investing in them is investing in your business.
There you go. And then the third foundation is all about efficiency, so processes.
Okay.
And you can kind of think about this as like streamlining your operations,
Yeah.
getting rid of those bottlenecks and figuring out like the smartest, most effective way to just get things done.
Less chaos, more flow.
Exactly. And this is another one that really resonated with me because as companies grow,
Yeah,
things can get really messy really fast.
definitely.
And so, Harnish really emphasizes the importance of having, very clear documented processes that everyone in the company like understands
Yes.
and can follow.
And are those processes adaptable? Because what works for a team of 5 isn't going to work for a team of 50.
That is such a good point because you have to like constantly be reevaluating, right?
Right.
And make sure that those systems can actually scale with you.
Exactly.
So, and then finally we get to kind of like the fun one, tools.
Tools. Okay, yeah.
Which, in today's world often means, software, online platforms.
Right, all the tech.
All the tech, exactly.
Which can be overwhelming. So
Oh, it can be so
it's not just about like getting on the newest, like,
shiny new object.
yeah, exactly.
Like just because it's new and shiny doesn't mean it's right for you.
So how do you even begin to like approach that?
I think it's really about just identifying like what are the right tools for your specific needs.
Yeah.
Whether it's like project management software, communication platforms, or even just like a really good task management system for yourself.
Yeah.
Yeah.
One of the articles mentioned like leveraging technology to automate tasks.
Yes.
And I was like,
It's a game changer.
yes. Even in my own life, like I am always looking for ways to streamline things.
Absolutely. It makes such a difference, right?
Oh my gosh, yes.
I mean, think about like how much time we save now with like, I don't know, online banking.
Oh, for sure.
Or scheduling appointments online.
Yeah.
Just like we're working smarter, not harder.
Totally.
Which frees up so much mental space to focus on the things that actually, matter, like those big picture strategic decisions.
I love that.
Yeah.
Wow. Well, this deep dive has been like so insightful.
Yeah, Harnish is great.
Harnish's whole like, scaling up methodology, it's so much more than just this like business framework.
I think so too.
It's really like a roadmap for growth. And it's relevant whether you're running a company, pursuing some kind of like, personal passion, or just like honestly trying to manage your own life more effectively.
Right. It's like these principles, they kind of transcend like just the business world.
You do.
Yeah.
It's about like having that structure intentionality.
Totally.
It's really cool.
And I think like the biggest takeaway is that it's a journey, not a destination. It's something that you kind of have to constantly like learn and adapt and fine tune these principles to actually fit like your unique circumstances.
Yeah. Well, for everyone listening who's, maybe feeling inspired to like scale up something in their own lives, what's like one question they can ask themselves to kind of, get started on that journey?
That's such a good question. I think a really good one would be to ask yourself, like, what area of my life, whether it's my work, maybe it's a personal project, maybe even a relationship, could actually benefit from having a little bit more structure, a little bit more intentionality, and maybe even a focus on some of these like foundational elements that we talked about.
That's a great question to kind of like sit with,
It is.
and see
Ah,
what comes up. Well, this has been awesome. Thank you so much for diving into all this with me.
this was so fun.
Yes. And for everyone listening, thank you for joining us on this deep dive.